Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Two for Talking podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. We've got Josh Yohe with The Athletic and comedian Joe Bartnick alongside. And, last week I was getting real excited thinking, hey, we go 3-0 this week. We're right back in the playoffs. And to be completely honest, they played good enough to do it. If it wasn't for the 8 of 9 losses in the shootout, good lord, we need to go back to practicing that like Disco Dan Bylsma style. But all in all, guys, I mean, I know it was 1-1 and we had a blown lead, but they played really good this week.
Well, I'm the cooler. I'm William H. Macy. It was a 4-game winning streak, and I'm like, no. We need a better lottery than this. And they called me up, and I went in.
They gave you the tap. They called him the Joe for we got to cool this off.
Yeah, so now I'm going to get tortured. Now I'm then they won another game, so then I'm going to get tortured by Alec Baldwin.
I saw Joe in the flesh at the Lexus Club after the Islanders game. He indeed is bad luck apparently right now, or maybe it's just the Islanders, because how many springs have they ruined in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania over the years? They are to the Penguins what the Penguins are to the Capitals. It's just the way it is. And that kind of looms large right now, because if they'd won that game and they were up 2-0 through 2 periods, things would actually be getting kind of interesting right now. And as it is, it's almost impossible. But I didn't think the Penguins were going to bounce back and beat Columbus after the way they lost to the Islanders. I thought that was it. And they did, and it was a fun game. And then I was in Sunrise yesterday. They outplayed the Panthers most of that game. They played really well. That's as happy as I've ever seen Mike Sullivan after a loss. He basically said, "Well, we can't play a whole lot better." And I would agree. They gave up 2 goals because Ryan Graves screwed up. Sometimes your worst player gets you. But I commend them, Joe, for how hard they are playing. Most teams where they are in the standings right now on the Florida road trip, they're just looking to play some golf on an off day, whatever. Like, this team is still working its ass off.
You're absolutely right, Josh. That was the jolliest I've ever seen Sullivan after a loss. And he made 2 interesting points in his press conference. One, he had a little smirk on his face when he says, "Well, that's not the way I would want to end a game." Something to that effect. I'm sure you were right there. And shockingly, there was no logo behind him. They really found the concrete wall. I think he was going to be doing stand-up.
It's like old 90s styles, like against the cement blocks,
Exactly. The other thing he said, though, what I found interesting, because I know I've been hoping upon hope that they would be practicing this, maybe not Mustache Boy or whatever Disco Dan came up with, but I thought, it can't hurt to practice something that accounts for basically the reason why you're not in the playoffs. But he said that you can never replicate 18,000 people standing. And I guess he's seen guys that are good in practice that can't do it in a game. And I thought he made an absolutely great point that he said that our big guys would be automatic. Now, we all know Letang does the same move forever. But Ange actually said last night, Crosby never makes it. And she remembers them all. So that's how long ago it's been. Sid used to be pretty much automatic. It was never Gino's forte, but Gino was pretty good. Letang, we know Letang. But really, Sid was always number 2. It was always in. And he's not automatic at all anymore. And he skates in like as fast as I can skate, Josh. Why does he ever try a speed move?
I don't know. I remember when somebody else on the Penguins would have a penalty shot back in the Mario era. And Mario is the greatest breakaway artist of all time by far. And he would always tell them, go in with speed. Just go in with speed. That's the whole key to breakaways. Don't give the goalie too much time to think. Like, just go in with speed and make your move. And Sid, it seems like he's trying almost the Patrick Kane approach on penalty shots now, to go in slow motion, and it doesn't really work for him. And maybe that's the one facet of his game where we're starting to see a little bit of age creep up. Oftentimes guys aren't as good on shootouts when they get a little older. The funny thing to me about Sid on shootouts, and historically he's very good on them, but it's how rarely he goes to the backhand. He has the greatest backhand in the history of the sport, and he almost never goes to the backhand on shootouts. He always tries to pick a corner or go 5-hole. That's always seemed a little strange to me. But I don't think Mike Sullivan likes games ending in shootouts in general. I think that's becoming a theme around the NHL. And you do notice the difference, guys. When you had young Crosby and young Malkin and you had Fleury, who was maybe the greatest ever on breakaways, it was almost an automatic 2 points when a game went to a shootout back in the old days. And times really have changed.
Yeah. And if it wasn't for that, I mean, Joe, like, you're not joking. Like, that's the difference between them being in the playoffs and not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you win a handful of those games, all of a sudden, like right now, you're like 1 point out of a playoff spot.
It really is a crap way to do it. And I know that Mr. Batman, we can get into that maybe second or third segment, is opposed to making 3-on-3 go longer. But I would really like to see 3-on-3 go 10 minutes and then it's a tie and everybody gets a point.
Yeah. I'd do 4-on-4 for 10 minutes.
I don't think people are going to score, though, 4-on-4.
I don't know.
They
but
didn't.
yeah, that's a problem. They didn't.
That raises a couple of questions. Number one, is a tie that terrible of a thing? Like, some people say yes, some say no. I will say this. I talked with Nathan McKinnon about this once. I said, why not just go 10 minutes 3-on-3? And he said, I'll tell you why. Because, like, I'm one of the guys who's out there all the time. People are going to get hurt if we play 10 minutes 3-on-3 all the time. That was his, which you have to consider. That is, the McDavids and the McKinnons and the Crosbys and the Matthews. Those are the guys out there all the time. And there's so much more skating, groin pulls, stuff like that, probably a lot more commonplace when you have a 3-on-3 situation. So maybe that's a thing. I've been saying all along, guys, I'm a huge proponent of going to 3 points for regulation wins. Like, I'm so tired of watching games this time of year when you have two Eastern teams playing and it's tied at 2 with 10 minutes left. They're just, they're just killing time trying to get to overtime. It doesn't make for competitive or entertaining third periods at all, in my opinion. I think that would spruce things up more than anything.
That is a great point. And my counterpoint to Mr. Big Mac McKinnon is, well, then maybe you don't have a 3-man rotation or a 3-pair rotation. You have a 4-pair rotation. And then, let's just say, you have Tomasino and Lizotte caught out there against a McKinnon.
Right.
And Nikushkin. I was going to say Rantanen, but that doesn't happen anymore. I just think it should go 10. I just think it should go 10 minutes. Anyway, I do like the 3 points, though. I think that makes a lot of sense because you're absolutely right. Teams just, when they got 5 minutes left, it's just a free skate until they get their point. And I don't blame them. It's almost like it's almost like the Penguins were the only team that doesn't act like that.
Right, but it would, if you had real incentive for a team that's maybe 4 points out of a playoff spot, like we need to win in regulation, that to me would certainly make the game a little more entertaining. Unfortunately, the NHL is not very good at maximizing its entertainment value. It's never been the particular strength of the league. But I don't know. I'm kind of over shootouts. I admit in 2005 they were exciting. I feel like they have run their course, and even 3-on-3, which it's fun to watch, even though it's gimmicky. Teams have figured it out too much. When you see, players retreating and just trying to wear the other team out, I don't know that's as fun. I kind of enjoyed the first couple of years when nobody knew what to do and it was just a free for all 2-on-1s back and forth until somebody scored. So I don't know. The league has some questions to answer in terms of entertainment, but for the Penguins, we've seen this now really 3 years in a row. They're no good when games go past regulation. They've been better 3-on-3 this year. Last year was where 3-on-3 really killed them, but now we see it in the shootouts. Even though Jari only allowed the 1 goal, he's been a disaster in shootouts all season. Ned's been a disaster in shootouts. And, Crosby's, I think, 1 for 6, 1 for 7, something like that. Letang and Malkin obviously aren't what they were. No, it's not the Penguins' friend when the game is tied at the end of regulation.
Well, I think I said this a few months ago, or at least I remember telling my dad this. As a goaltender in shootouts, you either have to be ultra athletic or you have to be ultra competitive. And Jari's neither. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to say this, that since he has returned from Wilkes-Barre, he has battled to the point where Mr. Sullivan even brought it up last night in the press conference and said that he's been battling. It's almost like he knew that was a catchphrase. Josh, listen, did you catch that?
Oh, yeah, I sure did. And no, he knows. Sully's pretty shrewd with what words he uses. And everyone in the organization is happy with how Jari's playing right now. I don't think anybody expected this. I really don't. I think when they called him up, they were concerned they were about to go in a free fall, and they wanted Bloomquist to get the hell out of Dodge because clearly he was falling apart at the NHL level. I think Jari was almost an afterthought, to be honest, when they brought him up. And he's not had a bad game yet. He's been good every single game. I thought he was outstanding again yesterday, even though the Penguins outplayed Florida for most of the game. Florida does this thing, Joe. Like they just take control physically in the third period of games. I don't know what it is about them, but they just like flip on a switch in the third period and they just overwhelm you. There's only so much you can do, and you could feel it happening in the building. And to Jari's credit, he only gave up one goal in that third period when they were peppering him, and they were clearly the better team in the last 20 minutes. I thought he held up really well, and he was good in overtime. The Penguins certainly had their share of opportunities to win that game in overtime. So, I think the big picture with Jari is he doing enough where there might be interest in him from other teams this summer. That to me would be a huge deal, especially if you're the Penguins and you're looking at the not too distant future. Sergei Miroshov's 10-0 for God's sake in the AHL. He keeps, getting Penguins fans and the Penguins organization more and more excited every week. He's not that far away from the NHL. We know he's the guy of the future, or at least they want him to be. If they can get Jari's contract off the books, that's a huge deal. And every game he plays well, he's helping, even if it's only a little bit.
Well, I think that he is playing well enough. When you see goalie contracts and you see the cap going up, I think he is definitely playing well enough to get someone to bite. But let's be the devil's advocate. He's kind of playing well enough to keep him around. I mean, it would be great if we could move Ned. Which I don't think that can happen.
Ned's got one more year
with him on the pine.
Yeah, he hasn't had a great year. Let's be honest, he hasn't, and he still has one more year left on his deal. I think it's fair to say, like, if you're the Penguins, and we're talking about next season now, we already know the season starts October 7th next year. So on October 7th, if your two goaltenders entering the season are Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic, I don't know if anybody's going to be happy about that. I don't know if you have the worst goaltending arguably in all of the National Hockey League this season. If you're going to bring back the same two guys who played the majority of the time, it's not a good look. That said, if Jarry keeps playing like this, what do they have, 10 games left? Say he gets 8 more starts and he plays at a really high level. So that gives you about like 15 high-level starts to finish the season. If he has a good training camp, I mean, he probably is your guy, as crazy as it sounds. And I wouldn't have said this in January. This is kind of a fluky thing that's happening, him getting this opportunity and him running with it. But he's been their best goalie lately. There's no question about that. And I don't think they will want Miroshov in the NHL at the beginning of next season. I could be wrong. And if Miroshov shows up in training camp and puts on a show, they've got a decision to make at that point. My sense is they would love for him to play at least most of next season in Wilkes-Barre. Just get a lot of time in the American Hockey League and make sure he's ready. And remember, Miroshov's still 20 years old. He turns 21 in a week. So he's a kid. It's an interesting situation. I wasn't expecting this, but in a way, it's a good problem to have if Jarry chooses to not stink. I mean, let's be honest. I think some trust is gone that will probably never come back. But listen, it only helps them if he starts playing better.
Well, if you look at the goaltending, though, I mean, a hot Miroshov, and we're in the playoffs. I mean, the number one reason we're not is hideous goaltending.
No,
I don't think it could be a decision. I don't care if the kid's 13 years old. I mean, if he plays that good at every level and is dominating, he just broke the Wilkes-Barre record.
That's true.
10 wins in a row. I mean, you can't send him down just to say, oh, he needs experience. Like, I mean, I just don't agree. I mean, you find a way for Ned to take a pay cut or get waived or sell hot dogs.
I don't disagree. And by the way, I'm only saying what I have heard. What I sense is what they want. I'm a big believer. I don't know about you guys. And every human being is different. I'm a big believer that if a guy has the mental wherewithal to be a good NHL player, and if he's going to be a good NHL player, I think it gets a little overblown. Like, oh, I don't want to bring him up too early. He might not be ready. Like, if he's going to be good, he'll figure it out eventually. That's my belief. I don't get too worried about bringing guys up too early. And I usually hate covering training camp because I already know who's going to make the team. But I'm already kind of excited for September, just to see Murashov against other NHL players, to see how he looks. Because you're right. I mean, his numbers at every level are extraordinarily good. There's no doubt about that.
I want to make a point about Jari, and I'm going to defend him in the shocking. Because remember when you saw me at Lexus Club, the soberest I've ever been at Lexus Club, I might
Yeah, you were
add.
pretty sober, Joe. Yeah.
I was very sober.
That will do that.
When they flashed the stats on the screen of Sorokin and Jari, everyone says Sorokin's top 5 goaltender, nailed down, maybe the best goaltender in the Manhattan, in the New York area. Jari actually has better career stats than Sorokin.
Huh. I did hear you say that on DV, and that kind of blew me away. Like, that's like,
Yeah, it blew me away. And I had my glasses on, so I didn't read it wrong.
You were looking, you were seeing straight. Yeah, I will say with Jari, I mean, this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment, but he's also a really easy guy to brush to the side when you want to bring the new guy in. You know what I mean? Like, the fans will be like, yep, we've had enough. Let's go. You know, like if Bloomquist comes up and plays like okay, like there might be some people like, oh, no, let's not get Bloomquist out of there. And God, we don't need another Murray Fleury situation. But I don't know. That's just maybe me. Like, I thought about that too. Like, what if he's around next year and then he starts to stink, and then it's like everybody's like, yeah, okay, let's move on. But I do think I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of wanted to bring it up again, but I think he's done well enough to get picked up by somebody. Like, the goaltending GMs are so desperate for good goaltending.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a team out of the 31 other teams that there's got to be somebody that's gonna take them, even for half your salary cap hit. You know,
it could be. I mean, it's possible, and of course, the cap does go up, and he only has 3 years though. 3 years left on his deal. I mean, it was a 5-year deal. We always talk about, oh my God, how do you give him 5 years? Well, 2 years are out of the way now. Basically, he's 3 years left at a little over $5 million a year. That's not an unreasonable contract for a number one goalie, if you view him as that. So I'm already fascinated by this summer. What happens with Jari? What happens with Erik Karlsson? Does somebody else get moved that is a surprise? How aggressive is Kyle Dubas on July 1st? How aggressive does he get on draft night? There are an enormous amount of storylines for the Penguins, and it's also going to be fun for Penguins fans. Listen, the Penguins have about a 1% chance to make the playoffs. I think we can assume that's not happening. The baby Penguins are going to be in the playoffs in Wilkes-Barre, and normally nobody cares, but that's actually something for all of us to kind of pay attention to, that they want to see that young group kind of gel together and win a series or two and maybe make a run. So even though the season's about to end, there's actually a lot of intrigue, I think, in the next couple of months.
You know, that's such a great point. And you weren't allowed, you kept it in your pocket last week, but we knew. But they're going to Sweden. So it's very interesting to see if Erik Karlsson will be on the team when we go to Sweden. If that means we'll get at least 2 of 82 games that he'll play hard in for next year.
Well, that's a start. That's something, I guess. That's a very good point. By the way, guys, while we're talking about the Penguins in this first segment, I know we mentioned the shootout troubles, but can we talk about number 87 and the way he's playing right now?
Unbelievable.
He is out of his mind good. He's got 12 points in his last 7 games. He's only 2 points away from hitting the 20th straight season with a point per game. If he gets 2 points against the Bolts at Amalie Arena tomorrow night, it will happen. I am astounded by how he's played. Guys, he leads the NHL in points since the Four Nations break. Nobody has more points than him. He now leads the NHL for the season in 5-on-5 points. And it felt like for much of the season, it was kind of a ho-hum season for him. It was okay, but it wasn't some classic Crosby season. I actually thought he was a little quiet in the first half, and all of a sudden, he's on pace to go over 90 points. and he's just looks just like he ever has. I'm just blown away by what he's doing.
Yeah.
How about Rusty Razor taking a page out of his book with the one-handed shot there?
I know. What a goal that was. Everything about that goal was beautiful.
The thing about tomorrow night is that the Tampa Bay Lightning kind of got embarrassed and put in their place in Vegas.
Yeah.
And that's not very good.
That's usually a bad sign for the visitors.
I mean, we somehow we do play. I mean, we played good there at the beginning of the year, but 2 years ago, or whenever they were raising the banner, no Sid, no Gino, no problemo. So you'll never know. I before we get to my hero, the big man from the Congo, I know Sullivan listens. Because who showed up on the PP number 1 on Sunday? The monster from
number 71.
Yeah. The monster from Magnitogorsk, the two-headed monster, was out there, and old school Cannon from G. I didn't think he had it in him anymore to blow up by anybody. That was phenomenal.
No, it was. No, I mean, the power play looked really good. I suspect we will see him there on the top unit for the rest of the season. But that top line is so good. I think the plan for the Penguins really is to leave Crosby with Raquel and Russ for the next couple of years. And why not? It's one of the best lines in hockey. Sid's obviously found a comfort zone. But I just, getting back to Sid for a second, like everything about his game is so good right now. He's got 8 goals and 12 assists in his last 15 games. But to me, it's just his skating. I was watching him the last couple of games. Like, he was like literally outworking Barkov and beating him to loose pucks.
Yep.
And just shrugging him off. Like, just the way he was moving and how hard he was working. Like, he was playing like it was a playoff game last night. And I just, when he plays that hard, when he plays at that level with that kind of intensity, it rubs off on everybody else. And I marvel that, again, for the second straight season, after a long season, he is just getting better and better as the season comes to its conclusion. And I have a column coming out in The Athletic tomorrow where I wrote that I think it's almost muscle memory more than anything. Like, he's used to getting hot this time of year to, turning it up a notch right before the playoffs. And I think out of habit, he's still doing it. He's just unbelievable right now.
I have 2 points. One is, well, he's resting during the summer from the last couple of years.
Yeah,
it's true.
Sorry, Sid. And the other, I just want to get back to the power play a second. I think that just keeping them separated long enough, I think finally broke that spirit, and keeping Letang off it, the number 1 power play. I think they're just the Quinn system sunk in. Pass, shoot, high, low, bumper, shoot. I think they finally broke that too many chefs in the soup, in Letang and the perfect pass, and let's all make the Sports Center top 10 highlights. I think they broke it. So getting old man Hayes off of that, where power plays went to die. It was like watching 80s basketball with Karl Malone. It goes in the paint and that's it. The ball disappeared. It's like when Hayes got the puck, it's like, well, that stopped everything. I don't know. I like the way the power play looked, and I think that's a decent reason to keep Grzelcyk at $4 million next year. If he can run that power play, keep Letang's minutes down, make Carlson expendable. I'm big on keeping Grzelcyk at a reasonable salary.
We've said it before on this show, and I'm going to say it one more time. It's astounding to me, but very clear to me, that the power play is better when Grzelcyk is running it and not Erik Karlsson or Chris Letang, which is an incredible thing. But and as great as Karlsson and Letang have been at times in their career, I don't know that either one is really a natural power play quarterback. Sergei Gonchar was a power play quarterback. There are some guy, Cale Makar is a power play quarterback. I don't know that Letang and Karlsson ever have, despite all of their physical gifts. Grzelcyk, though, listen, he simplifies everything. He shoots when he should shoot, and more than anything, he's just a very intelligent puck distributor. When 87's open, he gives it to him. Sometimes it's that simple, and you see that. So, no, the power play, that was the best it's looked in weeks, I thought, with that alignment against obviously a team that's not easy to score power play goals against in Florida. So, I had no fault with really anything that I saw yesterday. I thought Ryan Graves had a shitty game. He got walked on the one Reinhardt goal, and on the game tying goal, I'm not sure what he was doing that entire shift. He was out to lunch. But other than that, like, nobody really struggled. I thought they outplayed Florida. It was an impressive performance. And as for the Tampa game, you're right. They got embarrassed in Vegas, so it might be a bad time to get them. But they also just played a ton of hockey, and they had to play, I think, on Sunday, and then you fly home, and then you have to play right at that first game at home on Tuesday. So it might not be the worst time to get them either. And the Penguins are kind of fresh and just playing loosey-goosey right now. I don't think they feel any pressure at the moment. So it might be a fun game, which is one thing, Joe, that I like about the Penguins right now. Like, every game they play is fun. Like that Columbus game Friday night, that was a fun hockey game. Sunday in Florida is a really fun, good game. Like, they're just playing entertaining hockey at the moment.
It was fun for one reason, and his name is Boku Imama.
That's your guy.
I mean, I was begging for him at a camp. You can ask Paul Stagger. You can ask Staggerwald. I said on this show 100 times. I'm like, why is he not up here? And he's finally getting regular shifts. He contributes on every shift. And you know what? He does something that some guys just can't do, and that's make the play off the wall. And that was my favorite thing about Sullivan. When he came in, he got all those cake eaters that couldn't make a wall play to save their lives. Get the puck up, bang it off the wall and up. And then, he takes on Olivier, is pound for pound the toughest guy in the NHL, and he stood there toe to toe with him. So he did everything, and he scored. The crowd went nuts. He was number one star. It was just fantastic.
I was happy for him. What a nice guy he is, by the way. Those guys always are the tough guys. He is just a gentleman. He is so happy to be in the National Hockey League. And you know what? I still go back to his very first game with the Penguins in Seattle a couple of months ago. He brings an energy to the game. He really does. I mean, every shift, it's kind of fun. He's going to look to hit somebody, and he's not. This isn't like Jay Caulfield or Eric Goddard out there. Like, he can play a little bit. He's not the most talented guy in the world, but I don't remember one play or one goal against where I said, he really hurt them on that shift. Like, no, he's fine. He's perfectly fine. I would leave him in the lineup the rest of the year. There's no reason not to. He's a tough customer, and I know there are varying opinions on toughness in the NHL, and some people, think it's overrated, whatever. I don't really think it is, and I think the Penguins have been lacking toughness in many departments for a long time, and I like what he brings. I really do. I like everything about him. I know he's great in that locker room too.
We know what it is. It's like goaltending, Josh. It's overrated until you don't have any of it.
Exactly.
And then you're looking for it. If your team's tough, it's not that. Toughness is it's one of those things. But then when you don't have it and you need it, he's right there. And that's what I like. It's nice just having a nuclear deterrent out there.
Yes.
Because he's not essential. It's like if you had someone like him, when Wilson's running around or Troop was running around, you need a guy that can take a 3-game suspension if it has to happen.
That's right.
Just send the ultimate message, and Boku can eat some popcorn. But you know what? You're not going to run Sid or Rusty or Gino.
No. And if Tommy wants to, run around on April 17th in the season finale, I promise you, Boko will ask him to dance. I don't know if he'll accept right before the playoffs, but he will. He's not going to back down from anybody, as we saw against Columbus. But I like what he brings to the team. I really do. He's not a goon. He's not some guy who, the fourth line is fine with him on it, quite frankly. And he just brings something that nobody else brings. And you could feel the energy when he's on the ice. That's a real thing.
Even better than a goon is he hits people clean. He doesn't Berube people or Chris Simon them. He hits them clean and he hurts them. A good forecheck, a good hit on a good clean, top 4 defenseman. That works out for you. They go back a little slower.
I mean, ask defensemen how they feel about getting hit every time they go back to play the puck. I remember in 2017 when Columbus had that great team that the Penguins beat in the first round. I still remember Brian Dumoulin and Ian Cole telling me, like, we'd rather play against Washington or any other of the best teams in the league than Columbus, because they beat the shit out of us every time we go back to play the puck. It just gets old in a hurry. So I mean, he does that. He hits people. That's still part of the game.
I still stand by it. I think that he to me looks like a player that when you're winning again, he can be on your fourth line. You have like a Matt Cullen or somebody else, a little bit more talent, but he doesn't look out of place.
Maybe, and guys like him, and maybe he wouldn't play in the playoffs if there are playoffs, but that's okay. I mean, that's the regular season is important too, and he still certainly brings a nice element.
That's what's exciting to me about this time. Whenever you're down like that, like trying to find those guys where you're like, oh, hey, like here's a little find, here's another guy, here's another nugget that we have coming up, and
speaking of hits in that game, there's something I never thought I'd see. Zach Aston-Reese hit somebody and they fell down.
I noticed that too.
I'm like, what happened? Somebody must have lost their footing. He knocked somebody down.
Usually he's busy like looking down at the ice when Tom Wilson's on the same sheet of ice as him. Ever since he broke his jaw, he was like literally afraid of him. Maybe Zach's grown some toughness in his old age. I don't know. Nice kid, man. Even though this guy's a little too nice. He's got P.O. Joseph syndrome, a little too nice. Some guys, you got to make them a little mean to be more effective.
P.O. has knocked some people down, though. I mean, remember, Zach Aston-Reese, he has like 400 hits. He had 400 bumps. He didn't have any hits. I mean, he literally didn't. He never knocked anybody over.
No, I don't think like John Carlson was ever thinking, oh, no, Aston-Reese is in on the forecheck. What am I going to do? No, it wasn't exactly Chris Kunitz in that regard.
Yeah.
No, and remember, he was supposed to be Hornquist, and it was like, what? We've never been sold a bag of goods more ridiculous than that statement.
I remember somebody like, oh man, he might be the like John LeClaire like level player, and that like you said, nobody sold us a bag of goods like that.
I still remember the day they signed him. I was sitting in my hotel room in Philadelphia. The Penguins were playing the Flyers that night, and I'm on the phone with Jim Rutherford, and he said, "Yeah, I really think he can be another Hornquist." I was like, "Oh, holy shit!" All right, that's just one guy like you don't ever hear anybody compared to, because there's not many guys like him. And I saw him play a little bit, like, you sure about this, Jim? I don't know. He scored a lot in college, but certainly never panned out that way.
No. Poor Zach Aston-Reese.
A nice man.
What do you guys think of Koppinen? I think Koppinen has looked pretty good.
I like him.
He knows his role. Like he knows how to be a fourth line style player. I think, at least in this most recent audition. Yeah, I kind of want to see more of him. He scored the goal, but he plays a pretty simple game. He's a big kid.
He's big.
Yeah, he brings you like they've had too many bottom six guys who don't have one notable characteristic. Like he's big at least. He's something that brings something to the table, right? And I think he's been fine. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of him the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing we can't forget, like these people, they're auditioning. Like you think the team's going to tank, I mean, like people are like, oh, they should tank. Well, first of all, it's never happening with Sid. Second of all, you have guys that are auditioning for the NHL. You know what I mean? Like they're bringing it to make a name for themselves and get, another contract or, a better look next year. And I do want to get into, we'll go into the national stuff, but and I want to talk about Sid a little bit in the, tanking, Sid, Ovi, all that kind of stuff. But first we do got to mention Mr. Bill Neofis and the Neofis Insurance Group.
Yes, our great sponsor who is still basking in the glow of his Carrot Top appearance a couple of weeks ago. He actually emailed me today. I like when he said, hey, I got a new advertisement for this week's show. So Bill likes to take the time to send us little messages, and we learn things. So away we go. Here, this is from our friend Bill. April, of course, right around the corner. April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, which I didn't know. So the Neofis Insurance Group wanted to share a quick reminder. Staying focused behind the wheel doesn't just keep you safe, it saves you money. Did you know that distracted driving is one of the leading causes of accidents nationwide? Even talking on the phone can reduce the brain activity associated with driving by 37%. I don't know where Bill finds this stuff, but I don't doubt it. And sending a quick text can take your eyes off the road for 5 seconds, long enough to cover the length of a football field if you're driving 55 miles per hour. Distracted driving is also a big reason why premiums have been rising. Even a single ticket for using your phone while driving could result in higher insurance costs. The good news is there are simple ways to stay safer and potentially lower your rates. Use the Do Not Disturb sign on your phone, which I didn't think about when driving, or put it in the glove compartment or center console. Be mindful of distractions like loud music, podcasts, or excited passengers. There are safe driving apps or programs that reward focused driving. If you'd like more information or want to set up a review of your current program, all kinds of insurance, as we know, call the Neofus Insurance Group. So it's 412-364-3388. They are the best, or visit them online, neofusinsurance.com.
We have to ask Bill if Bob Grove is getting his stats for him.
Yeah.
That's actually not a bad idea. I wonder if he did.
Bob Grove of insurance stats. And
That was good. That was good stuff. I gotta say.
Yeah. But so kind of sticking with the Penguins a little bit here, but we'll get into the NHL in general. Like we're talking about these young guys coming in. The Penguins aren't gonna tank, and everybody says they're losing out on the draft pick, whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's better to build a winning culture. I think, in my opinion, I think we've talked about that on the show before. For any of the young guys that are going to come up and be a part of the winning in the future, they see from Sid how it's done night in and night out on game 82 of a season that's lost. But what Sid is doing is unreal. And we pair that with Ovi, and, that's what we titled this, as Chasing Gretzky. I mean, he's got 10 games to score 2 points. So I'm not saying it's in the bag, but he's probably going to set the record.
I think he'll be all right. Yeah.
And the way he's doing it, the way he's staying consistently, strong. Like I kind of went through and looked at his numbers again. I wrote something about it a while ago, but at this rate, like even modest seasons for 3 or 4 more after this, I think if he adds 1 more year onto his current deal, if he has modest seasons for Sid standards, he ends up number 2 all time in points, probably over 2,000 points total, and on it like lands somewhere around like number 4 all time in goals. Like what he's doing is unbelievable for his age, for just the consistency. It's just for someone who came into this league with so many expectations on him, and now we can throw Ovi into this mix as well. And I would kind of want to talk about them both. Is that the 2 guys that were trusted with saving the league? You know what I mean? Like it was like, man, we really screwed up with that lockout. Here's Sid and Ovi, and hopefully they do something for you. And for both of them to live up to the expectations and do the things that they're doing, and both about to take over Gretzky in 2 different categories, it's unreal. And I just kind of wanted to set the stage with that, of like what Sid's doing, what Ovi's doing, and will we ever see something like this again?
Yeah, we might not. I mean, it's in play, and I was thinking about Sid today. Like, how many athletes have been this dominant for 20 years? Like, really? And Ovi, I'm not taking anything away from Ovi. He's still obviously going to score 40 goals this year. He's not nearly as dominant as he was 10 years ago. I mean, there's been more of a decline in his game. But how many guys, like, you can argue Sid's still clearly a top 10 player in the league. Like, how many guys in sports, like Brady? Yeah. LeBron? Yeah. Like, those are the only 2 guys I could think of in team sports this century who have been dominant for that long of a period of time. You just don't see it. And people keep thinking Sid's going to slow down. He's 35, he's 36, now he's 37. I mean, yeah, he'll slow down eventually, but who's to say that he won't still be this good for a couple of more years? Like the way he's going, I don't see any drop off, Joe, at all physically in his game. I really don't.
No, he is absolutely incredible. And so is Ovi. And I think it's also just incredible that, and I'm going to throw, LeBron has made a few more missteps than the hockey 2 guys. But the fact that all 3 of them have lived up to the hype and really not been bad citizens at all when you consider what they could have done.
Right.
Yeah.
It's marvelous. And, and I know he's my guy, but as a number 2 overall pick, I'll throw Gino in that. It's like he hasn't made any missteps.
No, you're right. No, that's a good point. No,
good citizens, good citizens, role models, if you will.
LeBron's never gotten in trouble. Sid's never gotten in trouble. Nothing. 20 years straight. And they are probably the 2 most hyped players in the history of those 2 sports.
Yes.
I don't think anybody ever got more hype than Sid. Definitely LeBron. And they've lived up to everything and then some. which is pretty incredible given the hype that they both received.
Yeah. I mean, and what LeBron made a decision on national TV, and Ovechkin drank a lot in the fountain in Las Vegas. Like, I mean, really,
Right.
and Sid's done nothing wrong.
Right.
Except Sid was called a whiner by fat F, Ken Hitchcock, who stole a Stanley Cup from Buffalo. And the ugly Hatcher brother.
I think Sid blew off media availability at the All-Star game once, and like a couple of people got insulted. Like, yeah, I mean, you will not find a cleaner living human being than Sidney Crosby. I think that goes without saying. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting comparison with him and LeBron. I think
who's
just
not
the longevity.
Shoes. He'll have a Crown Royal, have a beer with it. It's not like he's he's a saint. He's a real person.
Right. That's okay. That makes me like these guys. They are real people.
Yeah.
And but Sid just, he's 2 points away. I wouldn't be shocked if he just puts it away in Tampa tomorrow night. He generally plays pretty well there. If he doesn't do it that evening, I bet you he'll do it in Buffalo on Thursday night. It's a matter of time. Since the Four Nations break, guys, he has at least 1 point in 13 of 15 games. And he has, I think, played his best hockey of the season the last couple of weeks, which is incredible to me. Go back to the Four Nations break. He had to be exhausted. Those games were so grueling. And then the NHL and all of its greatness has the Penguins play like 3 games in 4 nights right off the Four Nations break. And he had the injury to his wrist or his elbow, whatever it was. We knew he couldn't even shoot the puck in most of the Four Nations. And I'm thinking to myself, like, he's going to cool off. Like, he's got to be exhausted. And he just keeps going. And I asked him, I said, aren't you tired? Aren't you going to take a break? Take a day off, something? And he said, nah. He said, if I take a couple of days off, that's when it might hit me. He said, it's kind of like when you're riding a bicycle and you're just keep going. I'm just going to keep going even though I'm tired, and I'll see if I wear out eventually. Well, looks pretty good to me. I marvel at what he's doing right now.
Joe said this before too, of like, you use Sid as your litmus test on like, well, what would Sid do right now? Would he work, or would he, sit here and be lazy? And I kind of use that with my nephew, who's like a teenager and, working his way to make himself a name for himself in hockey. And I asked him how his workouts are going, and he said, pretty good. And then I sent him a picture of Sid's quads and said, are you here yet? And he said, nope, got to work towards that, So it's nothing that you can't be. I said, go run in the sand with Nathan McKinnon and with a parachute on your back. That's how you get to. But yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable, like the consistency, and for any kid out there that's just looking for a role model, it's like, it's the perfect kid. And then I saw this video clip floating around on social media. It's the one of him when he was 14 years old. Do you remember they like went to his school, and it was like maybe one of the first times he was really interviewed on TV. And it's like, God, like this kid was like, Sid was like 13, 14 years old. He's already on TV. He was getting hoisted into the Gretzky comparison at that age. To stay humble, that's
what I mean. That's 25 years ago or whatever, and he's never changed. He really hasn't. And Ovechkin, how could you not give him credit when it looked like he was declining badly last year? He did not look himself last year, and that bounce back and have the season he's had. And honest to God, I hope he has a chance to break the record the last game of the season in Pittsburgh. That would be spectacular theater. Gretzky will be there. The Pittsburgh fans will be booing Gretzky and Ovechkin. They won't know what to do with themselves. But there will be a lot of Capitals fans there. And Sid's going to win that game in overtime no matter what happens. So that would be unbelievable on April 17th if that happens.
Yeah.
I kind of hope he breaks it before that. I don't want him to do it against the Penguins. I don't want to hear the national. I don't want I want the national media to be covering a different game. So I don't need to hear the Ovechkin Gretzky comparisons, because they always make it sound even. And until he gets another cup, it's like when he gets another cup, then I'll listen to all the comparisons.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, everybody knows it's like if you're making that comparison, you're just you're just trying to fill time on TSN or whatever, whatever channel you're on. Because I know it's not ESPN, because they don't talk about it on any of those big shows. They don't even probably know that Crosby or Ovechkin. They might know Ovechkin's close to the goal record, but so going around the rest of the NHL though, Columbus, I just wanted to ask you guys, what do you think's going on with them? I mean, it looks like the bottom is kind of falling out there, and
Well,
there's a
they're
great
getting
story.
Monahan back. That'll help. They lost a lot of games in a row where they shouldn't have. And who would have thought the Habs were gonna get hot? The Habs, I think, look impressive.
No, they do. I mean, they certainly have the inside track now. Columbus just, man, the Columbus did get a good win tonight, by the way. They tied it in the third period on the island and won in a shootout 4-3. So they needed that one. They were really spiraling. Maybe they're just not ready for prime time just yet. They've been an incredible story. But Montreal, we've talked about it. And they've never gone 4 years in a row missing out on the playoffs. This would have been the fourth straight year. They just have a way about them. And I'm going to say this right now, and this is before I know who's in the playoffs or the matchups. The first round's still 4 weeks away or whatever. Washington will be the 1 seed in the East. I'm telling you, if Montreal gets in, don't be shocked if Montreal gives them a series. Weird stuff happens in Montreal in the playoffs. It just does. I don't know why. It's just fact. That team is starting to come together all of a sudden. I didn't see it coming. Like they could be a little bit feisty in the first round. I'd be a little concerned having to play against them. They're a bunch of little gnats who can all skate. I can see them giving Washington fits.
They are small, fast freshmen, but they still got Josh Anderson and they got Wi-Fi out there.
Yeah,
to keep everybody honest. I think the West. I always lean towards the West just for fun and shits and giggles. Because how about the Kings now? Quentin Byfield has 8 goals in the last 10 games.
Yeah.
Jesus and Leon are out another week. The Nuge is not going to get a hat trick every night again. Skinner's not going to score every night. So the Kings may get in the 2-hole. And like I said, they're not going to win. They're not going to win 2 series in a row, I don't think. But they may beat the Oilers for once. But I think the Central is even more interesting. What are the Avs are now like 11-1 at home in the last 12. McKinnon is ridiculous. They're completely coming to the Brock Nelson trade looks amazing. Yeah. And the Stars are starting to sink to the point where DeBoer went nuts on them the other day.
Something's wrong with that team. Maybe it's just having Heiskanen out of the lineup, who I think is the most underappreciated player in the sport. I've watched Dallas a couple of times since the Rantanen trade. Something's off with that team. Something is seriously wrong. I don't know if they got a little full of themselves with all the talent they have, or maybe Rantanen just hasn't fit in the way they were hoping. Dallas was my pick to win the Cup before the season, and when they made the Rantanen trade, I thought, oh yeah, I'm feeling good about that pick. I'll be honest with you. If the playoffs started today, I'd pick Colorado to beat them based on what I've seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I just think Colorado's playing at a much higher level than Dallas right now.
Well, I think it'll go 7, but Sagan is supposedly coming back. But then they're saying Landeskog is coming back.
Yeah. Of course, they've been saying that for like 2 years.
Yeah.
So,
he's skating with the team, though, Josh.
I know. I'm sure he's going to try, and I hope it works. Gabe Landeskog is one of my favorite people in the sport. He is a wonderful human being. What a captain he is. And if they can get reasonable bottom 6 minutes out of him, I mean, think about the lift that's going to give them. I mean, you talk about an emotional lift and just making your team a little bit better on paper. They are scary all of a sudden. When I saw the Avs beat the Penguins a few weeks ago in Denver, I remember thinking to myself, boy, they don't look like the Avs. Or something's off with this team. They never replaced Kadri. I just something about their team I don't like. All of a sudden, you put Nelson and Coyle down the middle, and they just feel like a completely different team. They feel like a legitimate Cup contender now.
Hey, Coyle is a great third-line center. He was just miscast as a top 6 guy in Boston.
That's right.
He's not a top 6 guy. And then Brock Nelson's heating up there, and they got rid of Casey Middlestat. You talk about someone who hasn't become a man yet, he doesn't want to take it to the next level. But if all Landeskog does is just become Nikushkin's roommate and lock him up at night.
That's not what you want. You want him to run wild in the playoffs and just do what he has to do to be at his best. I know how it is.
That's what I say, but use Landeskog's piss then. That's all I'm saying.
But boy, when I watch Colorado, listen, McKinnon and Makar are 2 of the 3 or 4 best players in hockey. We all know that. And Nate just has been really good since they got him. But when I watch them, Nichushkin that guy is a star.
Yep.
He really is. And when he is playing like this, like that gives them an offensive punch that I don't know that any other team has. I know Edmonton has the two big guys, but it just makes Colorado so much deeper and harder to handle. Listen, the Avs, you told me in June the Avs win the cup and it wouldn't shock me. Like they're that good right now.
Well, he stands out to me more than Rantanen when he's in the lineup.
Yes.
I
don't like Mikko's game right now. Something's off with that guy.
No, I mean, even when he was in Colorado, though, like peak Nichushkin was like almost Forsberg-esque in just absolute dominance.
Yeah, and he's just so big, and I mean, the guy's
Fluid.
hands are unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, he's got a little bit of Kevin Stevens in him, quite honestly, the way he plays, big power forward with those hands. No, he's one of my favorite. They're my favorite team in the league to watch. I always say that. They're just so much fun. I will again repeat. I just hate that we're going to see them in Dallas in the first round. Probably one of those teams should not be eliminated after the first round, but it's just the way it is. Dallas better wake up though. And if Heiskanen cannot play in that series, that's a real problem for Dallas, in my opinion.
I'll tell you what, though, Josh, there's a good point that Mr. Bettman made about this. When he says, I like the matchups, it made me think about it. Do you want to see Dallas and Colorado after like they're banged up and it's, late May and some guys are missing? Or do you just want to see those guys when I know Heskinen's out, but everybody's healthy and fresh day one? It almost makes for better hockey.
I know what he means. And the truth is, the greatest spectacle in sports right now, in my opinion, is the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Those are always the best series. I mean, I think we've seen the season so long and the game has become so physically demanding that we've seen a lot of bad conference finals and finals the last few years because people are just worn out. So I get it. There is something to be said for that, but I'd still rather have the best matchups a little later in the playoffs. Personally, that's me. But listen, I will say, just the sports fan in me, if we get Colorado and Dallas and Florida and Tampa in the first round, like sign me up. I cannot wait to watch those series, and I hope the NHL is smart enough to put them on alternate nights.
And you know what? I'm becoming a Blueser guy. I kind of want to see the Bluesers sneak in there.
They might.
They're a fun team. They had a war against Nashville the other night. That was playing well. That was a lot of fun.
And how about that highlight goal with the three guys batting both assists and the goal all batted out of the air? That was nuts.
They should all play for the Pirates. They can actually hit something. Okay, end of pirate talk. No, but we no one loves Ricky T more than us two on the show. But that was a terrible loss in the Garden on Saturday. They played Quinn Hughes gave the best Cale Makar impression I've seen yet, and they still lost. And the dagger from JT Miller, that had to hurt.
Oh. I hate to say it because we are Rick Tocchet fans on this show, but I don't think they're making the playoffs. I really do not like what I see in that team right now. Pettersson, I guess, has shown some signs of life. I don't trust him. If he's your best forward, I think you've got a real problem. There is just something off with that team. And you're right. That game on Saturday, I was watching it. To come back and tie the Rangers in the third period like they did, that was a pretty huge moment. I think it was Besser tied the game.
Yes.
And then the Rangers scored, a minute later. That's just a killer. I think the Canucks they had a dramatic win tonight, if I'm not mistaken. They were losing really late. And I think they came back. They're playing, I'm looking right now, in Jersey. They came back and tied the Devils really late. And Vancouver, in fact, won it in the shootout. I got to look at the box score. Suter tied it with 36 seconds left.
Okay. What's funny about that Ranger game was that game was so bizarre that I hit the fast forward button too fast and jumped like 3 goals at a time. I'm like, what? It's 4-3. It was like 2-2 10 minutes ago. Like I went from like 2 to 4 on the fast forward on the TiVo. I was like, what happened?
And by the way, the Rangers still stink. They had 1 shot on goal in the first period. They looked like they didn't want to be there. Like there's something wrong with that team. I don't know what
1,000%. Speaking of guys though that's showing a little life, All right, I'm going to make 2 points. I'm going to make 2 points. One is I'm not to sound like Don Cherry, but I'm sure Rick's thinking this. It isn't Pedersen just why you don't want your best guy to be a European guy unless he's like Yager or Forsberg.
Wow.
He's just kind of like that soft European guy. I know.
He's the stereotypical, right?
Yeah, I mean Barkov breaks the mold. There's a lot of guys that break the mold, but that's just your like, you know what? He's leading the charge. We got rid of JT Miller for this clown. My second point is Austin Matthews waking up.
Yes, he has.
Well, and if Toronto could do it, like this is a year to me. I mean, I know they're with Florida and Tampa, but the East not being so strong.
It's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, I guess that's like, look, if you look at the bottom of the standings, it's just literally filled with, like league wide, it's filled with East teams. Yeah, I think Toronto has this is maybe their chance. I didn't look at his like stats recently, but is Austin like, waking up in the sense that like he's going to be able to carry them through the playoff waking up, or is he just like showing signs of life and getting people in Toronto excited for no reason?
Well, I mean, they're always excited for no reason.
Yeah, good point.
But he's looking more like 70 goal Austin Matthews than, his wrist hurts and he's flying to Europe under a cloak and dagger. He looks more like himself. He's getting some points. He's getting some goals. His line's producing. I think the big key will be, it looks like Wall is playing well in net right now. So if they can kind of get their defenseman healthy and finally find a third line, find a fourth line, which they're playing around with. I don't know how they couldn't use Connor Dewars, but thank God we got him.
Right. Yeah, I really like him a lot, by the way.
Yeah,
he's been
I like him on Gino's line.
And by the way, I actually hope Toronto wins that division, because if Toronto wins the division, we probably get the Battle of Ontario, Toronto, Ottawa in the first round, and we'll probably get Florida, Tampa in the first round if that happened, which I think we would all enjoy. And I also think that's best case scenario for the Leafs. If the Leafs don't win the division, in all likelihood, they'd have to go through Tampa and Florida in the first 2 rounds. Good luck. I don't see them going through those two. Maybe they could beat one of them. Maybe. I don't see them going through both. So I think it's important for Toronto to win the division. If Florida or Tampa do, whatever. I don't think it's a huge deal for them. For Toronto, I think it is.
My main reason for rooting for Toronto is I want to have Austin Matthews as an American be their captain that wins them the Stanley Cup. That's my main thing. But I'll tell you who's playing who's so great for them is John Tavares. Yeah. Tavares has played incredible this year.
Good for him. Really good guy, by the way. One of my favorite people in the sport. He's quietly. It's hard to do things quietly in Toronto. He's quietly had a very good season.
What's interesting about it is I'm pretty sure we talked about this. For no reason, they ripped the C off his chest.
It's ridiculous. I know.
Just absolutely no reason. Guys, it's been nothing but a class act.
Right. Really weird. Like incredibly weird.
I mean, it's kind of like what the cheap ass owner in Carolina did when he took the C off of Ronnie, which helped everybody. We love that.
Didn't Tavares score the overtime winner when they finally won a playoff series too? Wasn't that him?
Yes. Yeah. I'm almost positive.
It's amazing that they would have.
While I'm on the Hurricanes rant, or while I'm talking about the cheap ass owner in Hartford, I don't know how you guys feel. I'll ask both of you. I really, 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 really don't like how the Carolina Hurricanes and that bitch ass owner wheels out the Hartford Whalers gear once every 10 games. You stole their team. You stole that and you rub it in their goddamn face. That's like if Oklahoma City wore Supersonics gear all the time.
I don't like it either.
You're just an asshole, guy. Enough of the heart. You stole them. You stole the Hartford. You think if Kansas City stole the Penguins, I'd want them to be wearing the Snoop Dogg jerseys every 10.
I mean, to put it like even Colorado did. Like Colorado takes the Nordiques logo and pimps it out. Like you stole a Stanley Cup champion right from Quebec. Like
Not like the Hartford does, though. Hartford really.
Hartford pimps it harder.
I think Quebec, it might be like their third jersey once every 10 years or something.
Well, and they keep it in the Colorado colors. Like they have the Nordiques logo, but it has the Colorado colors. So I will say, yeah, the where Carolina goes from red to green, and it just doesn't fit. I mean,
No.
I prefer brass bonanza.
I don't like when teams do that in general. It's just obviously financially geared and nothing else. And
I've had enough.
It doesn't serve any purpose.
Hurricanes. They are so boring. Like if I was a fan of the Hurricanes, I would be mortified. Like this would be like that. They're in like NHL hell. Like there's no escaping this averageness. It's kind of where the Steelers are, to be completely honest with you. Just mediocrity. You're gonna make the playoffs, maybe. You're gonna lose. It'll be over. Nobody will really remember anything you did while you were there. That's just how I feel about them.
You gotta love After Dark Bartnick. Get him a Coke. Fired up. More zesty than my 9 a.m. East Coast time.
Yeah. But so the last thing, before we go, is my big question, is the NHL is talking about expansion. They have talked about expanding from 34 up to 34 teams, and apparently 36 isn't too far away. How diluted is this going to get before we call it quits?
It's already too diluted. I mean, I understand what the expansion fees are. So, of course, yes, there's not going to be anybody in the NHL who's like, oh, no, we don't want to consider this. But, I mean, 36 is insane to me, Corey. I don't think that's healthy for the league. There's already, I think, kind of a maximum point where we're at right now, where if you add any more teams, like how many AHL players are going to be taking up roster spots in the NHL? I don't think we really need that. I think it's okay where they are right now. I'd prefer they didn't add any teams. But the thing is, now you have even teams that traditionally struggle financially. Like I was in Florida last night. It's a sellout. It's a sellout every game there. So now almost every team is making money. So you're going to see it happen at some point. But man, it's about money and it's not about entertaining hockey. And I'm really concerned that the product could nosedive a little bit if we see that.
Starting in net for your Cincinnati Cyclones, Alex Nedeljkovic.
There you go.
That's a really good point.
I don't
up for that.
I don't know. I'm not against expansion. Take the money. Just no more games. I would love to just see if they can take that and take your expansion money and make it a 70-game season.
A 70-game season, I feel like would be more action. Like, you remember what was it, 2013 or whatever? We had like a 50-game season. And it was just like a free for all. Like that felt like, it
was 48 games. It was incredible.
But
I mean, you know how it is. That's where the NHL makes its money at the gate. So you're going to see them go to 84 games. It sounds like in a couple of years, by the way. Don't be shocked.
Expansion has been one of my theories on why we're not as exciting as a league as we used to be, is because now that there's 30, when there was 21 teams and 16 made the playoffs, everyone but the Penguins, basically, it didn't matter until March. So no one was overcoached. No one overcoached anybody in October, November, December, January. 6-5 games. There was no trap. Nobody cared. Everyone's getting their cookies. Only one upsets Barrasso, who's trying to keep his goals against down. It was way more a freewheeling league because no one's head was on the block. Now, 8 coaches are fired by Thanksgiving because they got off to a rough start. It's like every game is way too important nowadays. So as much as I don't want to see an expansion of playoffs, I think you're going to have to if you had more teams, because just too many teams aren't going to make the playoffs. And GMs don't like that. They like to pretend they're making playoffs to keep their jobs.
Remember Garth Snow throwing that out there years ago at the GM meeting whenever the Islanders sucked for years, and he just goes, what if we just all made the playoffs? What do you think about that? Like, okay,
That's why
Garth.
he's Garth Snow.
Yeah.
The great Garth Snow, who was never all there, I don't think. Although I'm all for I'm not a big NBA guy, but I actually love the play-in format that they use. Like I'd be fine with, having the top 6 teams get in the conference and have 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 play for the final 2 spots in a winner take all one game event. You think that wouldn't generate interest in hockey and help TV ratings? I would love to see that personally.
Yeah, why is Gary against that? That seems to help it adds more teams to the playoffs, and it gets a little more excitement and more revenue.
I don't think Gary has like a group of confidants that he discusses things with. I think he likes things or he doesn't. And that's pretty much the way it goes, which always baffles me. But
Much to the detriment of the league sometimes.
This is off topic, but as I'm actually in Pittsburgh this last month or so I've TiVo'd a million, Pittsburgh Sportsnet, little behind the scenes and, Penguins Chronicles and this and that and everything. And one of them had Dave Schultz, his 1 year as a Penguin. I remember this when I was a little kid. Like, we got the Flyer goon being interviewed by Bob Prince on the ice. This might be a plug for the network, but just TiVo every Penguins Chronicle, because there may be one in there that you're going to see Bob Prince interviewing the Hammer.
Wow.
I didn't know.
In the igloo.
I hope Bob had a drink in him. I'm sure he did.
I think he did. I think Schultz did too. They were talking about beating up some fans with a stick.
Back in the good old days, right?
Yeah, and Prince was like, you better get out of the way. Schultz is going up there. It's out of control.
Yeah, that's wild. I don't know. I mean, if we get to 36 teams, it feels like it's way too much. 34 feels like it's way too much, but it's going to happen.
84 games feels like too much too, but I think it's inevitable.
They're all greedy. They're going to say yes to 2 extra gates. They're going to say yes to.
Well, and here's the problem. There are teams who want to go with the heavier divisional schedule to go back to like 8 games against the Devils a year and 8 against the Islanders, because they think that's better for gates, the rivalries. But if you do that, then there will be seasons when Connor McDavid doesn't play in Pittsburgh or Sidney Crosby doesn't play in Vancouver. I'm a big believer that every team should play in every building. I think that's the way it should be. And I think that will win out. But the problem is right now we have, where there's a couple of divisional teams you only play 3 times in a season. I forget, is it Carolina? I think only played once in Pittsburgh this year. There's one year the Flyers only played once in Pittsburgh. It's absurd. So you have to play the divisional opponents at least 2 times at home and 2 times on the road, I think. But to make that happen and to play in every building, you got to play 84. So that might be what we're looking at. At least it sounds like they're going to cut the preseason by 2 or 3 games at least. Thank God, because I don't think anybody needs too much in the way of preseason hockey.
Nah, they do enough with the inter squad scrimmages and
yes,
they
all
don't need that Joe and I watch on the internet.
Yes,
back in '98.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I watched them this year. I watched them right there. The team, you see Team A versus Team B. Well, Team C is in conditioning. I'll be watching everything. They just don't. I think Josh, maybe it's your idea. I like the idea though of instead of taking like that 2 weeks off. I know you said that the Players Association fought for it. Why can't they just have like rotating bye weeks? Say the Atlantic gets off this week, and then so there's still hockey going on.
Yeah, instead of everybody kind of dropping off.
That's actually a very good idea. Again, that makes a lot of sense. The NHL, for whatever reason, doesn't always like to do the sensible things.
Not do things that make sense.
Like I did that poll on Twitter a couple weeks ago, and I said, "Would you like to go back to the 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7 playoff format?" 95% of people said yes. Somebody asked Gary Bettman about it. He said, "I don't like it." Like, Okay.
95% of people never say yes about anything.
No, I couldn't believe. I knew. Listen. I knew damn well most people were going to say yes. That's why I asked the question. I plainly admit. I thought maybe like 70 or 80%, 95% of people don't agree on anything, and Gary just says, I don't like it." Like, oh, okay, Gary. As long as you don't like it, that's
He's
great.
been in there too long. I know he
Yes.
has them in a good financial situation, but it's 31 years now that he's going to hand the cup out. Like way too much. You have to take one of those years out though for the year he didn't hand the cup out, which is also his fault. Yeah, I
No,
don't
but
know.
he saved hockey.
I know.
He saved hockey in Pittsburgh, and he saved hockey around the country. It would still be the BS. The Rangers, Toronto, and Detroit would have spend all the money.
Yeah. It's but hey, if they get to 36 teams and they don't have the Quebec Nordiques back, which is a tall task because the Canadian dollar, all that kind of mess.
Right.
I don't know, but I'd love to see the Nordiques finally back in the league. As I've said on this podcast, I bought their jersey and wore it for a year playing street hockey, and then they moved to Colorado, and I'll never, ever, ever forget.
There's a better chance of Stockholm getting a team than Quebec.
Yeah, we might see that with the Penguins there next year.
Absolutely.
You were talking. I just want to say one thing about March Madness. There were some great games, but other disappointments as far as excitement level. And I just think the NIL and the transfer portal is just ruined college basketball. And now a once great thing is now just like going to be just like everything else, just kind of ruined. But it'll be hyped like it's so great. It's not. There was no Cinderellas. There was nothing exciting. Anybody good at any of the small schools just jumped into the portal, and they're going to be playing for Duke or Kansas next year.
There is not one compelling storyline in this tournament.
No, you can't build a team anymore. It's just like there's no these five guys all played together at St. Mary Mountains of wherever, Montana. It's like no, because the best three guys are going to go try to move up to play for Montana State, and the best two guys on Montana State are going to go try to play for Gonzaga. It's like the system's broke. I wanted those kids to get paid. I'm certainly not against kids getting paid, but they need to figure out a better system than letting them all jump around every guy. I mean, it's not the NBA, for Christ's sake.
It has hurt NCAA football, but I think it's just crushed basketball. And there's no, I mean, I know the TV ratings were way down last year. I bet they are again this year. And aside, and I think it goes hand in hand, though, that there's nothing interesting about any of these teams. There's no compelling storyline. There's no rivalries anymore, really, because the teams are so drastically different. It's a different group of guys every single year. So it's hard to develop any hostility between teams. Like, I watch the games because the tournament format is the greatest tournament format in sports. It's easy to follow along. We all do our brackets, whatever. But I can't say that I found myself the least bit emotionally invested in any game I was watching. It was just kind of a bore.
Yeah. And then how about on Sunday? They were like, hey, it's a Sunday. Everybody's hanging out at home. Why don't we have 4 games happen after 8:30 at night? Like,
kind of weird.
Like Sunday, usually March Madness games on Sunday are done by like 7:30. It's a lazy day. You're hanging around the house. You're watching March Madness, and I don't know. And Joe, like I agree that the transfer portal and everything. I think they need to do something. Like there's going to have to be a governing body. I don't know if it'd be the NCAA or whoever that has a salary cap and also signs people to contracts, and like that's how you keep a kid there. Like some kid goes to a certain school. Sorry. And he only gets 50 grand a year in NIL money or 25 grand, and he signs a 2-year deal with them, and he has a great first year, and everybody wants to shell out, but he can't leave. Like I think that's fair. He got paid what he was worth at the time. He took the deal, and he'll after 2 years his contract will be up. He's a free agent and he can go wherever he wants.
Well, I think either you have to stay for 2 years, no matter what, somewhere, or you have to sit out a year when you transfer. Just the old school way. It used to be if you transferred, you sat out a year,
Yep.
and maybe you only get to pick 2 schools or like that's it. You have 2 chances. There has to be something. And I'll tell you a funny story. Was I was in Cleveland, and we actually were in the same hotel as Vanderbilt and I think Michigan State. That they so ESPN had the ladies on, and you know how now men all have long hair and like they'll have the dreadlocks. I watched the ladies for like 5 minutes before I knew they were the ladies until somebody like broke in the paint. I was like, this guy's gonna kill it, and like they laid it in. I'm like, okay, that's a chick.
It is hard. How about there was that one girl for Iowa State. She was a beast. Michigan ended up beating them. That's how I saw the game. But I think Madden was talking about her. She was like unreal. Like huge, like really big girl, but like athletic, could move, like unbelievable.
You guys are watching more basketball than I am. I'm impressed.
Well,
Yeah.
I watch March Madness. That I will say,
too.
I love college basketball, but now it's college basketball after they ruined the Big East. College football ruined the Big East. Syracuse, Boston College, and Pitt left the Big East, ruined the best thing. I love college. I love the Big East basketball almost as much as Patrick Division hockey, and that's saying something. And they ruined it ever since then. I've just become a tournament guy, and now they're kind of ruining the tournament.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm like, people. My sister asked me how like upset are you going to be if Michigan loses, and I'm like, okay. Like Michigan basketball, I start watching like right before the Big Ten tournament. And then, I get to know the players. And if they lose, I'll be mad. But does it ruin my week? Nah. Like that's what college basketball has become for me. It's whatever.
That's a healthy adult approach, Corey.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, like everything else, really, my hardcore teams, like it ruins my week. Like I'm close to the Penguins losing last night, not affecting me, but we'll see, like just mailed this in a little bit on this season. But well, that'll do it for us on this week's episode of Two for Talking. Thank you guys for doing this late night with us. If you want to follow us on YouTube, go to Two for Talking on YouTube. You'll find it. Subscribe to us there.
Click on subscribe. We like that.
Yeah, please subscribe, and then also on the Twitter or X or whatever it's called, follow us all there, and you'll be able to see it pop up live, and then also the podcast where you get it. And we'll talk to you guys next week.